You're born in 14th century England. Your family lives in a house that smells of sweat, beer, and boiled cabbage. Your father drinks more ale than he keeps food in the pantry, and your mother works her hands raw trying to keep the children alive on prayers and scraps. By the time you can walk, you already understand one thing. Children cost money, and your family has none to spare. By the time you turn 5, you've already learned to scrub floors. At 7, you help stir the cauldron while your mother mutters prayers that the porridge will stretch one more night. At 8, your eldest sister marries and leaves with a dowry so small the groom jokes he must have angered God. Your father curses their marriage for days. And by 9, you stop expecting childhood to feel nice. Your father now drinks more openly, muttering that daughters are curses disguised as babies. He takes your brothers to the forest for a boys' hangout, disguised as archery lessons, boasting about his days on the battlefield. When he returns, he pats your cheek, calling you the pretty one. It earns you extra chores, like don't go outside alone, don't speak to men. You add that to your already long list of do's and don'ts. A few years pass, and you turn 12. Now you are so eye-catching that your father has given you a new name, the Death of Me. Every day, suitors line up, hoping to get your hand in marriage, with some even being your father's age. Your father, too, would love to have one less mouth to feed, but in 14th century England, everybody is trying to survive. And in your case, the suitors are trying to use marriage as an excuse to extort a significant dowry from your father. Your father laughs and curses them out, obviously drunk. They leave, but never for long. Then one day, your father hears that the local convent is taking in new nuns. The church visits, reminding him that the convent accepts girls as gifts to God, especially pious pretty ones. Within a week, your father makes his choice. The church promises him enough support for the winter, enough support that he asks if they need more girls. He signs your name on a parchment you never see. The day you're taken, they shear your hair before a crowd. You tear up as your locks fall to the dirt, like pieces of your life separating from you. Women murmur blessings. Men smirk while your mother cries silently in the crowd. You're taken to the convent, and it looks peaceful from the outside. White stone, a tidy courtyard, smoke curling from the kitchen chimney. They give you sets of clothes called a habit. Safe to say, it'll stick to you like a bad habit. You expect a welcome of quiet prayers and gentle sisters, maybe even the warmth of shared faith. Instead, the doors close behind you like a jail gate. Your first morning in the convent begins with the bell at 4 a.m. The sound cleaves your dreams in half. A novice kicks your palate and whispers, "Up. If you're late, she'll make you kneel on salt." You learn quickly who she is. The abbess, a woman carved from frost and scripture, who believes obedience grows only where comfort dies. That same day, you scrub floors until your fingers bleed, cold stones sucking heat from your bones. Meals are bowls of thin gruel, always cold, always too little. You watch priests and seminarians across the courtyard eating warm bread, salted meat, winter pears. One passes you as he blesses your labor, but never lifts a hand to help. He calls it sacrifice. You call it hunger. In the abbey, the elder nuns enforce silence with zeal. One pulls your ear until it tears, because you breathe too loudly during prayer. Another confiscates the extra crust a kitchen girl quietly handed you. Gluttony, she scolds, even as her own robes bulge with stolen comforts. The hierarchy becomes clear. Abbess at the top, elder nuns below her, novices at the bottom. And you beneath even them, a charity offering from a drunken father. A girl marked as trouble, simply for arriving unwanted. Your days soon blur into ritualized exhaustion, kneeling until your knees bruise purple, fasting until you see stars, scrubbing footprints you didn't leave, confessing sins you didn't commit. One night, while lying on straw that smells of mold, you whisper a question you don't dare ask aloud. Is this God's will, or just human cruelty dressed in holy robes? You don't know yet, but your body is already learning the answer. Years pass, and you turn 15. And just when you thought things couldn't get worse, a decree comes from Rome. The abbess gathers everyone in the refectory to read the Pope's ruling. Strict enclosure, the new law of Christendom. Nuns are to be sealed from the world, to prevent temptation, to preserve purity, to protect the brides of Christ. No leaving the convent, no touching the outside world, no family, no windows that open fully, and no wandering in the orchard without permission. The older nuns bow their heads in acceptance. The younger ones look like candles snuffed out. And you? You just feel something inside you wither. In the nunnery, the air grows still. Girls begin to whisper that other convents across Europe are rebelling, some trying to escape. Then you hear the stories. A nun in York, Joan of Leeds, faked her death and made a dummy of her own body so she could flee to a man she loved. Another nun ran off with her lover wearing his cloak. Another stripped off her habit at the gate and vanished into the night. Their stories spread like illicit scripture among the novices. You meet one such rebel in the making, Sister Eleanor, barely older than you, teeth always clenched from holding back tears. She confesses that her family lied to get rid of her. Her calling was forged by her brother to avoid splitting the inheritance. She wants out, not for lust, not for sin, just for air. You promise to help her. The next night, you distract the porter while she slips out wearing a laywoman's gown smuggled from the laundry. You pray she makes it farther than the ones who were caught. She does. The next morning, the abbess calls you forward. She knows. They always know. They accuse you of aiding sin, corrupting holiness, endangering souls. Your punishment is public. Fasting, whipping, and kneeling on cold stone until your legs tremble. As the rod cracks your back, you think back to your actions and wonder if it was worth it. Not about helping Eleanor. You'd do that again in a heartbeat. Your question is to yourself. Was it worth it to stay for your father's sake? You know that if you had run, the convent won't keep their end of the deal anymore. So you look at the barred windows and realize, escape is a miracle. Survival is the punishment. Soon they decide whipping isn't enough. The abbess places a wooden scourge in your shaking hands and orders you to finish the punishment yourself. Strike until the sin leaves you, she says. You try once, twice, but the sisters surrounding you chant harder, and soon the blows land without rhythm, without breath, without mercy. The leather cuts your shoulders, then your arms, then your thighs. Warm blood blooms through your habit, sticking cloth to skin. You collapse twice. They haul you upright. A penitent must stand, the abbess reminds you. By the time you fall for the last time, you no longer feel pain, just ringing emptiness. And in that hollow space, the truth finally breaks through. None of this is God. These are men's rules, men's punishment, men's invented sins. Your body is merely the altar on which they prove their authority. And as you think they'll haul you upright again, a priest arrives, robes rustling like a judge. You think he'll increase your penance. Instead, he kneels, lifts your chin, and murmurs that he will intercede on your behalf. He then pulls the abbess to the side as they whisper. You don't know what he says, but before long, the abbess stomps away. The priest looks at you and then smiles, telling you that everything has been settled. You are soon hauled off for your wounds to be treated. Fever, Torn skin and bruised ribs keep you in the infirmary for weeks. It takes you a month to finally walk again. When you get out, you get a message that the priest wants to see you. So you go to his quarters in the rectory to thank him for his help. But when you see him, you have a feeling that your thanks isn't what he wants. He moves closer. You mutter an apology and move to leave. But he pins you to the wall, telling you he wants more. It is at this moment you realize that his mercy came with a price. You learn then, in this holy prison, salvation is just another word for possession. You resist at first, hands stiffen, head down. But he reminds you of your scars from punishment. So you freeze. And then you obey. One by one, your habit gets stripped away. You tell yourself that it's nothing, that it'll end. But a sharp jolt of pain makes you scream. And you just can't help counting every second as the act transpires. When he's done, you want to curse at him. But his glare makes your voice falter. So you just whimper that his action was against the church. And he says with conviction, "I am the church," and assigns you to himself for counsel. The longer the priest keeps you under his guidance, the more you see the convent's true anatomy. Not a house of God, but a machine built on fear, money, and secrecy. While he summons you under the guise of spiritual correction, forcing obedience through threats and bruised warnings, the abbess's eyes toward you sharpens into open hostility. Not because she wishes to protect you, but because you have become a liability. A girl marked by a priest's interest threatens her control, her hierarchy, her delicate arrangement with the men who fund the convent. You learn quickly how power flows here. The abbess, who preaches piety in the mornings, negotiates land agreements in the afternoons, manipulating donations, leveraging noble families, and hiding debts behind layers of ritual. The same cloister that preaches enclosure opens its door wide when wealthy nobles arrive. They treat the convent like a private lodge, bringing servants, feasts, and gossip. Some stay for weeks, their presence disrupting the silence rule entirely. And still, the abbess bows to them, smiling through the incense smoke. It is in these moments, carrying wine, cleaning after noble banquets, listening from corners, that you learn how many girls around were also victims to him, even some elder nuns. Your own suffering at the priest's hands becomes a secret everyone pretends not to know. The abbess resents you for it. The priest insists your silence proves devotion, and other nuns avoid your eyes, not out of cruelty, but fear. They know what happens to girls who draw the wrong kind of notice in a place where sin is whatever powerful men say it is. For the next few months, your life becomes a routine of abuse and loneliness. The routine breaks with a faint sickness one morning. Nothing alarming at first. Hunger and exhaustion has ruled your body for years, so weakness is familiar. But when your belly begins to swell, your breath catches in your throat, you know immediately whose shadow hangs over you, and you know the convent would never believe the truth. Whispers spread before you even understand what they are saying. Novices stare at your midsection. Older nuns cross themselves as if warding off a curse. The abbess summons you with a look that could flay flesh from bone. "A child," she says, circling you like a judge at sentencing. Proof of your corruption. You try to speak, to plead your innocence, but she silences you. You look around and see that she isn't alone. The priest behind it all now stands beneath the crucifix among the judges. His expression is smooth, holy, untouched. He lifts a hand toward the other judges. "She invites temptation," he says. And that's all it takes. The narrative is sealed. Your body becomes a courtroom, and your baby is evidence of a crime against you the convent doesn't want to acknowledge. The next Sunday, they drag you before the villagers gathered for Mass. Bells toll as though announcing an execution. They force you to kneel on the stone steps, belly heavy, knees burning. The priest demands your confession. You deny wrongdoing. He demands it again and again. At last, with the crowd watching, you break. Not because you lied, but because truth has no use here. You repeat the sins they feed you: lust, pride, sorcery, disobedience. Gasps rickle through the congregation like applause. Then comes the sentence: banishment, excommunication, erasure. You go back home since you have nowhere else to go. But your father slams the door when you beg for shelter. "You shame us," he slurs. "You earned this." With nothing but disgrace clinging to your skin, you step back into the world. Not free, just discarded. A woman condemned simply for surviving the sins of a bad man. You go to the outskirts. It is the only place that doesn't care if you stay or not. It is scattered of shacks, broken carts, and people society spits out like rotten gruel. Months later, you give birth alone in the outskirts, in a drafty hut made of stolen boards and mud. You scream into straw as the contractions hit you like stones so the village won't hear. One after another, you persevere alone, as there is no midwife, no sister, no mother to guide you. Just you, the straw pallet, and the sharp memory of the medical lessons forced into you at the convent. Lessons meant for tending the sick, not bringing life into the world. When your baby finally slips into your trembling hands, purple and slick with blood, you press him to your chest and whisper the only blessing you still believe in: live, even if the world hates you. You raise your son here, far from church bells and judgmental stares. Every day after that is survival. You steal scraps, gather herbs, barter labor for stale bread. You realize raising your son is hard. Harder than the convent, harder than exile. He grows fast. He's also always hungry, always curious, always watching the world that rejects him. You teach him everything you know: how to boil water before drinking, how to mend torn skin, how to run when men grow cruel. Years pass like this, rough and graceless. You're 27 when the whispers start. Talks of the plague. First in the city, then in the villages, then creeping along the roads. Farmers bar their doors. Monks flee their posts. Dogs starve beside dead masters. The world collapses in weeks. You try to shield your son, rationing food, boiling herbs, praying old prayers you don't believe. But the fever finds you anyway. Your joints swell, your skin darkens, your breath wheezes. You know the signs. You've tended to the dying before. He cries at your bedside, begging you to stay awake. You tell him to leave you and not come near you. You fear he will catch the plague too. He never listens. Then one morning, you see a small black swelling blooming on his neck, and your heart breaks in two. You hold him close, even as illness gnaws your lungs. You say your last prayer as a whisper into his hair: survive. Then one morning, your lungs simply stop fighting. You die quietly. No miracle, no candlelit vigil. By nightfall, the plague cart comes. The collectors don't ask your name. They don't care that you once belonged to the convent, or that your life was chewed apart by vows you never chose. They lift you by your wrists and ankles, toss you onto stiff bodies already buzzing with flies. Your head strikes a stranger's ribs. No one notices. You are rolled through the village you were exiled from, past doors that never opened for you. The cart rattles to a mass pit. There, they dump all of you like rubbish. No shroud, no prayer, no marker, just a mass pit of decomposing victims of the Black Death. Centuries turn, your name dissolves, your story thins to nothing. In the archives, monks copy hymns praising holy maidens, obedient nuns, and radiant virgins. Historians celebrate abbesses who managed estates, anchoresses who chose their walls, mystics whose visions became literature. But not you. Never you. Your agony lives only in the silences, in the gaps between monastery records, in the unspoken truth behind enclosure laws as unrecorded screams. In the end, your life becomes what the church preferred women to be, absent. And your son? I guess we'll never know. You're born a girl in medieval Europe. Congratulations, you've already lost the lottery. Your mother dies bringing you into this world. Not exactly rare, since it happens to 1 in 3 women. You start life as both a burden and a living receipt for what it costs. Lucky you. Your father remarries within 3 months. After all, someone's got to cook the meals and keep the kids alive. Your days growing up are simple. Wake before dawn, help your stepmother cook breakfast, wash laundry, milk the goats, cook dinner, collapse into bed. Your brothers learn to ride horses and play with wooden swords, while you scrub floors. Your stepmother does teach you useful skills though, mostly because she needs the help. Not reading or writing, that's for priests and noble boys. The village is poor, the doctor's expensive, and someone needs to patch up scraped knees and soothe coughs when the weather turns. So you help, first by fetching herbs, then by mixing tonics, and eventually by helping her tend to villagers when half of them fall sick with flu. She shows you which herbs stop bleeding, which ones clean wounds, which ones ease pain. Before long, the village starts calling on you for help with small injuries and seasonal fevers. Nothing official, just the kind of things no one wants to bother a real doctor with. By 14, your childhood ends abruptly. No more helping your stepmother in the garden and playing doctor. Your father has betrothed you to a man twice your age, who owns 20 acres of land and smells like cattle. Marriage isn't about love or consent. It's about merging properties and producing heirs. Your wedding takes place outside the church doors, because in medieval Europe, marriage is considered a legal transaction, not a holy sacrament. It's less a romantic union and more a livestock auction with extra steps. You stand there in a stiff linen dress while everyone stares. Your father hands you over like a title deed, and your new husband grins like he just bought a prize cow. The best man stands nearby, and his actual job description is to prevent you from running away during the ceremony. Not kidding. That's why he's there. Then comes the wedding night. You'd think your first night as a married couple would be private? Think again. The wedding guests will be staying to witness the consummation. Nothing says romance like a crowd of drunk spectators. Off to a great start. You're his property now, same as his plow or his horse, except you're expected to cook dinner and bear children. Your new husband makes his expectations clear from day one. Breakfast better be ready next time I wake up, he grunts over his morning meal. And I don't want to see the floor dirty again. He's not cruel by medieval standards, but he treats you like a servant who happens to share his bed. You learn quickly. That burnt bread means going hungry yourself, and that speaking out of turn leaves you explaining to neighbors why you walked into a door. You learn to swallow your words along with your pride, calculating which battles are worth the bruises. There's nowhere to turn for help. You have no legal identity, no right to defend yourself, no escape through divorce. Marriage truly is until death do you part, and given the mortality rates, that might not take as long as you think. The years that follow blur together in a cycle of pregnancy, childbirth with no anesthesia, nursing, and recovering just long enough to get pregnant again. This is your life now. Your body becomes a factory for producing heirs. At 24, your 5th pregnancy nearly destroys you. The labor lasts 2 days, and you lose so much blood that the midwife starts whispering prayers she usually saves for the dying. You can feel your life draining away with each contraction, your vision going dark at the edges. But somehow, impossibly, you survive. And this time, finally, it's a boy. Your husband is thrilled. He celebrates with the neighbors and brags about finally getting an heir out of you. 3 weeks later, he starts coughing. It's just a small cough at first, barely noticeable, but it grows deeper and more frequent. Within a few days, he's struggling to catch his breath between fits. Then comes the blood. Just flecks at first, then alarming red streaks. The fever follows, burning so hot you can feel the heat radiating from his skin whenever you bring him water. For 5 agonizing days, you tend to a man who grows weaker by the hour, his breathing becoming more labored, his skin growing pale and clammy. On the 6th morning, you enter his room with broth to find him still and silent. Suddenly, you're all alone. But for once, not powerless. As a widow who bore a male heir, you inherit everything: the land, the house, the livestock, the debts, and most importantly, your legal independence. This is crucial. Had you only produced daughters before his death, you'd be facing an entirely different fate. Without a male heir, his property would pass to his nearest male relative, leaving you with maybe a third of the estate, and facing forced remarriage within months. The difference between bearing sons and daughters isn't just preference. It's the difference between independence and destitution. For the first time in your life, you can make decisions without asking permission. You teach yourself to read using your late husband's ledgers, and expand your herb garden beyond basic healing plants. Your knowledge grows, along with your confidence, and local women start coming to you first when they're sick. Word continues spreading about your treatments, and your reputation grows. Soon, you're not just the village healer. You're running a profitable business. You hire servants to handle the household work while you focus on your craft. Your house transforms from a humble household into something approaching prosperity. By 35, you've built something extraordinary from nothing. The comforts you can now afford would have seemed impossible in your childhood. Heated baths instead of a freezing river, feather pillows instead of straw, aged wine, soft linens, all earned through your own skill and labor. Your children have shoes that fit, clean clothes when they need them, and enough food that they never go to bed hungry. For the first time in your life, you're genuinely happy. You wake up each morning excited about the day ahead, proud of the work you do, and the independence you've built. And with success comes status. Even the wealthy start choosing you over expensive doctors. Nobles start sending gifts with their orders. Silk from a baron's wife whose headaches you cured. Silver earrings from a merchant's daughter. A leather-bound book from a grateful lord. Not bad for a woman. But prosperity has a price. The local doctors watch your success with growing fury. Their expensive treatments forgotten while villagers flock to your affordable remedies. What started as mild irritation quickly festers into dangerous resentment. They begin spreading whispers. How could an uneducated woman possess such knowledge? Surely no mere mortal could cure what learned physicians cannot. The whispers find fertile ground in the most absurd ways. Your neighbor's chickens wander into your medicinal herb garden and destroy 3 months of careful cultivation, including a patch of hemlock you use for pain relief. You shout curses and shoo them away, furious at the loss. Your neighbor comes running at the commotion, witnessing your rage as you chase his birds from your ruined plants. The next morning, all 12 birds are dead. Your neighbor accuses you of witchcraft, because obviously it couldn't have been the toxic plant they just devoured. The accusation spreads through the village like wildfire. At first, you think people will see reason. After all, these are your neighbors, your patients. But fear is stronger than gratitude. You watch neighbors you've known since childhood avoid your gaze, and something cold settles in your stomach. You can feel the ground shifting beneath your feet. What started as a petty dispute has turned into something far more dangerous. Suddenly, every successful treatment becomes evidence of dark magic. The fever you broke last winter when the blacksmith's son was near death for 3 days? Clearly supernatural. The breech birth you turned with your bare hands, saving both mother and child when everyone expected them to die? Obviously demonic intervention. The trial is a foregone conclusion. The doctors who've been resenting your success eagerly testify against you, claiming that no woman could possess such medical knowledge without diabolic assistance. Local politics play their part too. Your prosperity has made you a convenient target for those who resent a woman rising above her station. The evidence against you is overwhelming. You're an independent woman with medical knowledge. You own property. You've refused to remarry despite multiple suitors, and you've become too successful for your own good. Obviously, you must be in league with Satan. The sentence comes swiftly. At 40, you've gone from respected healer to condemned witch. They tie you to a stake in the village square where you once sold your remedies. The same people who bought your tonics and praised your healing skills now gather to watch you burn. As the flames begin to rise, you scan the crowd and see faces you recognize. Former patients you helped through fevers, difficult births, infected wounds. They watch with a mixture of fascination and horror, some crossing themselves, others turning away. The smoke rises, thick and choking, and in your final moments, you understand how quickly everything you built can turn to ash. That's your life as a medieval woman. You survive childhood, marriage, 5 pregnancies, then get barbecued for being too good at your job. Turns out there was no winning for a married woman in the medieval ages after all.
You were born in 12th century England, which basically means you've already lost the game of life before you even know how to hold your head up. Your parents? Peasants. Dirt poor. Proud owners of absolutely nothing except a leaking roof and a few chickens that look just as depressed as you're about to become. From the second you gulp your first breath of smoky village air, your destiny is set in stone. Work until you break. Eat whatever hasn't spoiled yet, and pray you don't catch something that ends in pox. Your daily menu? Bread, if you're lucky, maybe some wilted vegetables. A slice of salted fish on holidays, if the universe is feeling particularly generous. Meat? Please. That's reserved for the people who actually matter. As for your future, it's one long, gray road paved with calloused hands, aching bones, and the faint hope that maybe, just maybe, you'll die slightly less miserable than your parents did. No wealth, no legacy, no song sung about your greatness. Just another faceless soul in a world that wouldn't notice if you vanished tomorrow. And just when you're getting cozy with the idea of eternal, inescapable mediocrity, your father drops a bombshell. He knows a way out, a sliver of a chance, a gamble so desperate that only someone who's seen how bad it gets would dare roll the dice. Because sure, breaking your back in a noble's field sucks, but chasing a dream, that can hurt even worse. At the ripe old age of 8, because nothing screams ready for adult life like being barely tall enough to reach a doorknob, your parents ship you off to the city, not because they don't love you, not because they're tired of feeding you, but because your father, after a lifetime of shoveling manure for nobles who didn't even know his name, heard about a man, a blacksmith, a craftsman so skilled he lived like a king among peasants. And your father, he actually knew him. Not well enough to ask for a favor, but just enough to offer up his own son as tribute. This, right here, is the plan. The one shot, The only thin, flickering chance you'll ever get to claw your way out of a life of mud and misery. So, with nothing but a threadbare sack and a head full of desperate hope, you're sent into the belly of the beast. The city hits you like a fist to the gut. It's filthy, overcrowded, and smells like someone set a barn on fire and then tried to put it out with sewage. You don't even have time to catch your breath before you're shoved through the doors of the blacksmith's forge, the place where your better life is supposed to start. And immediately, you realize this is hell. The forge is a screaming, sweating, hammer-swinging madhouse. The air is thick with smoke, and the heat slams into you like a brick wall. Kids your size sprint past carrying molten metal like it's just another Tuesday. The master blacksmith gives you one look. Thin arms, wide eyes, change your clothes, get to work. No inspiring speech, no welcome to your future, just a stack of filthy rags and a schedule that would make a grown man cry. Congratulations, you're an apprentice now, which is medieval code for human tool. Your new responsibilities? Haul buckets of water so heavy your knees pop like old wagon wheels. Shovel endless mountains of coal until your spine feels like it's about to snap. Pump the bellows until your arms shake harder than a leaf in a hurricane. And if you screw up, if you so much as drop a hammer or let the fire flicker for a half a second, punishment is immediate. Extra hours, no food, public humiliation. Sometimes all three, if the master's feeling generous. Because out there, waiting and watching, is a line of desperate kids who would kill to take your place. No second chances, no sympathy, just sharpened knives and hungrier eyes. Meanwhile, you're trapped in a daily war against John, Michael, and Robert. John, the schemer, son of a famous weaponsmith, here to outshine his old man. Michael, the prodigy, could outwork 3 apprentices with one hand tied behind his back. Robert, the suck-up, his uncle's on the city council, and he never lets anyone forget it. They're not your friends. They're not your teammates. They're the wolves you'll have to outrun if you want to survive the forge at all. Years crawl by, each one pounding a little more strength and a little more fear into your body. But somehow, you survive. You survive the cracked knees, the split open hands, the hammer blows that glance off your wrist instead of the anvil. You survive John's scheming, Michael's effortless dominance, and Robert's smug reminders that your bloodline couldn't buy a loaf of bread. And finally, after burned fingers and sleepless nights, you stop being just another clumsy pair of hands. You become something more dangerous. You start making real tools, horseshoes that hold firm through a cavalry charge, nails that don't split the timber when driven home, swords sharp enough to whisper death with a single swing. The first time your master picks up one of your finished pieces, turns it over in his hands, and grunts something that isn't total disgust, you realize you're not a burden anymore. You're an asset. You're still an apprentice, still disposable, but now you're good enough to matter. And when you finally reach your graduation day, around the age of 15, you're offered something you spent half your life dreaming about, a future. The master calls you over, his face carved out of stone. No smile, no ceremony, just 2 choices thrown at your feet like a battered coin flip. Option 1, stay, work for him, earn steady wages, live under his roof with a guarantee of food, shelter, and just enough coin to survive the winter. A life of hard labor, sure, but a safe one. Predictable, comfortable, survivable. Option 2, become a journeyman, step into the wild, travel from city to city, town to town, begging for work in places where a stranger is just another problem to ignore or rob. No guarantees, no protection, no second chances. If you make it, you carve your own legend. If you fail, you die cold, hungry, and invisible. You hesitate. Of course you hesitate. After all, security sounds a lot sweeter when you know exactly how hard the world outside can punch. But then your master tosses in one final shard of hope. If you leave and survive, there might be a place for you here again someday. Might. Not will. Not promise. Just a sliver of possibility, barely enough to catch the light. And because you're young and stubborn, and so damn sick of taking orders, you take the gamble. You choose the unknown. You become a journeyman. And you step out into the world for the first time, alone. You had a job, you turned it down. Security, food, a roof over your head, all tossed aside because you wanted more. Was it a mistake? Maybe, maybe not. You're about to find out. The first few days on your own are a special kind of misery. No forge, no tools, no real plan. Just a satchel slung over your shoulder and a growing pit of hunger gnawing at your ribs. You walk for days, town to town, village to village, asking for work at every forge you find. Most times, you don't even get a no. You get ignored, like you're not even there. And when you're not invisible, you're worse, suspicious. A strange face means trouble, means stealing, means something the blacksmiths don't have time to deal with. By the second week, you're sharpening knives for street vendors just to earn a scrap of bread. By the third, you're sleeping in barns and stables when the farmers aren't looking. By the fourth, you're genuinely considering selling your hammer for a bowl of stew. This is the glamorous life you fought for. This is freedom. And it's slowly killing you. But just when the hunger gets loud enough to drown out your pride, you catch a break. A farmer's hoe snaps in half during planting season. You repair it with a borrowed hammer and half a fire pit, forging the cracked iron back together with hands that haven't held proper tools in weeks. The farmer's impressed. He doesn't pay you much, barely enough to buy a loaf of bread. But he tells his neighbor, who tells another. And suddenly, the long chain of silence breaks. First a hoe, then a plow, then horseshoes for a traveling merchant. Each job earns you a few more coins, a few more scraps of food, a few more nights sleeping under a roof instead of under the stars. It's not much. It's survival, but it's yours. Every calloused finger, every aching step, every forged piece of iron, it all belongs to you now. You are no one's apprentice. You are a blacksmith, a real one, not in title, not on paper, but in the only way that matters. You can survive on your own work. Coin by coin, you start saving. Work by work, you start building a name. You invest in better tools, better materials, better skills. You don't just fix broken things anymore. You make them. New axes, new horseshoes, new knives so sharp they could split a hair. You travel to bigger towns, learning advanced techniques from any blacksmith willing to trade knowledge for an extra pair of hands. Every mile you walk, every blister you earn, every deal you shake, you are becoming something more, something dangerous. By the time you return to the city, you're not the scared, scrawny kid who stumbled out of the forge years ago. You're a weapon, and you're finally ready to be noticed. The city doesn't recognize you at first. You've changed. Not just older, not just stronger, honed, tempered, like a blade that's been hammered until the impurities burned away. You take on jobs, bigger ones, more important ones. And word spreads faster than wildfire. You're not just the blacksmith's apprentice anymore. You're the blacksmith. The guy who reforged a knight's sword on the road when every other smith said it was hopeless. The guy who can shoe a war horse so well, it runs like it's floating on air. Nobles start to take notice, mercenaries, even army generals. At first, it's everything you dreamed about. Coin pours in like rain, the kind of coin that buys respect, that buys comfort. You rent a real workshop, you sleep on a real bed, you eat real food, meat, whenever you damn well feel like it. You stop surviving, you start living. And then reality slams its foot on your throat. Because when you're that good, you stop being a craftsman. You become a resource. And resources get claimed. You hear whispers before you see it. Certain nobles aren't just impressed with your work, they're interested in owning it, owning you. One day, a letter arrives. An offer, polite on the surface, threatening underneath. A powerful lord wants you as his personal blacksmith. No negotiations, no counteroffers. You belong to him now. And if you don't like it, there are always ways to convince a man to become more cooperative. Kidnapping, threats, slavery, take your pick. You disappear before the sun even sets. Forge cold, tools abandoned. For a month, you live like a rat, moving from barn to barn, alley to alley, praying you don't see a bannered guard riding through the streets. If they find you, it's over. You won't be a master anymore. You'll be a prisoner with a hammer. But fate, for once, flinches first. The civil war boiling in the kingdom finally erupts. The lords who wanted you dead or caged have bigger things to worry about, like not getting their heads chopped off. You survive by sheer luck, by sheer stubbornness. You survive. And when the dust settles, you rise. By 22, you're no longer some desperate kid hauling buckets for scraps. You're a master blacksmith, not just by title, but by reputation. Lords compete for your services. Knights travel across kingdoms to commission your blades. And this time, you choose who you work for. You choose where you plant your forge. You build your own workshop, your own house, your own name. You are everything your father dreamed you could become, and far more than he ever dared to imagine. But success isn't the paradise you pictured, not even close. The orders never stop. Weapons for armies, armor for battalions, tools for whole regions. The forge roars from dawn to dusk, the fire's never dying, the anvil never cooling. You hire apprentices of your own, kids who look at you the way you once looked at your master. No matter how many hands you bring in, no matter how many hours you pour into the work, it's never enough. It's never enough. Because every sword you forge turns into 10 more orders. Every set of armor you finish leads to 3 more contracts. Every favor you grant turns into another leash around your neck. The forge becomes your world again, a prison built not by poverty, but by success. And slowly, quietly, without anyone noticing, it starts to kill you. You don't notice it at first. Not the way your hands tremble when you grip the hammer. Not the way your back locks up halfway through a shift. Not the way you cough a little harder every time the forge smoke curls around your face. You're too busy. Too important. There are weapons to forge. Deals to honor. Names to make. You ignore the pain. You ignore the cracks. Because that's what survivors do. Until one day, you can't. The coughing doesn't stop anymore. Your joints scream with every movement. You wake up feeling like your own body is trying to bury itself. You see a doctor, a real one, not the old woman who treats sword wounds with moonshine and prayers. He looks at you, listens to your lungs, checks the calluses on your hands, the paleness of your skin, and then he tells you the truth. Lead poisoning. A lifetime spent inhaling toxic fumes, handling raw materials, working 15-hour days in a forge without rest. There's no cure, no treatment, no miracle. You're dying, and there's nothing anyone can do about it. Most blacksmiths don't live past 50. You're 47. You built a forge that fueled armies. You raised apprentices who now run their own shops. You helped find a guild that protects the very kids who used to sleep in the soot, dreaming of something better. You changed the city. You changed the world, and no one outside those walls will ever know your name. No songs, no statues, no legends whispered around campfires. Just the quiet legacy of iron and smoke and broken hands. You accept it, because the truth is, you never swung a hammer for glory. You did it to survive. You did it to escape. You did it to prove, if only to yourself, that you could be more than the world expected. And you were. The day you die, the forge is still burning. Apprentices still hammering steel into swords. Journeymen still shaping iron into armor. Customers still lined up, clutching coin, desperate for the work your hands once performed. The world doesn't stop. It barely even slows down. But somewhere, deep in the roar of fire and steel, your story lives on. Not in songs, not in stories, but in every blade that refuses to break, in every nail that holds a house together, in every apprentice who dares to believe that maybe, just maybe, they can be more. You were never just a blacksmith. You were the fire that shaped an empire. And even as your body fades into ash and dust, the forge never dies.
You're born in medieval England, a time of mud roads, cavities, and short lives. Your parents? Peasants. The path ahead? Already chosen for you, and it's not a good one. You're gonna spend your days working the Lord's fields, shoveling manure, milking goats, and dying by the ripe old age of 40. Fun, right? But one morning when you're about 15, something in you snaps. You're out in the fields at twilight, your back aching again, the same stench of livestock. And it hits you. This can't be your life. You don't know where you'll go, you just know it has to be anywhere but here. The future carved in dirt? Not for you. So before the sun even comes up, you make a break for it. No plan, just a direction. And the hope that anything has to be better than this. You reach the nearest city, a smoky sprawl of cobblestone and noise. Not much better, but hey, it's new. You find work where you can, sweeping alleys, carrying sacks, scrubbing chamber pots. It keeps you alive, but that's about it. Then one day, you see him. A man riding into the square, dragging an outlaw behind his horse. No uniform, no crest, just rope at his saddle and knives on his belt. A bounty hunter. He drops the body on the ground, spits, and holds out his hand. A sack of silver lands in it. That's when it clicks for you. I can do that, you think. No lord, no leash, just a sharp blade, the thrill of the hunt, and more silver than your family would see in a year. It's clear. That's the life you want. You start watching tavern walls for posters, listening for names. Your first bounty? A joke. A petty thief caught stealing from a tailor. You find him drunk, face down in a haystack. Dragging him back is harder than catching him, but you get paid. 1 silver coin. It's worth more than your entire family would see in a month. And just like that, you're hooked. But the next jobs aren't so easy. No more pickpockets passed out in stables. Now it's your job to track men with nothing more than boot prints, bar whispers, and vague descriptions. You've got no maps, no portraits, just rumors and blood trails. And the fights, they're not heroic. Just a lot of grappling, bruises, and the occasional broken rib. One guy even stabs you in the leg with a fork. But you keep at it. Slowly, painfully, you figure out the job. You can quickly tell which leads are lies, which tracks are fresh, and how to fake confidence when a guy twice your size is about to start swinging. In short, you adapt, or you bleed. Eventually, you get enough silver to buy a horse. Not a good one. She bites, bucks, and occasionally scrapes you off on low branches. But she's yours. You'd trade her for something better, but it looks like you were the only fool willing to take her in. So for now, it's the two of you. At least, you don't have to walk. Now you're 20. The jobs keep coming, and so do the bruises. You're getting faster, sharper. Not a veteran yet, but not green either. One day, you drag a crooked guard through town. He's taken coin to look the other way. Doesn't know your name. Doesn't care. Just spits and calls you a sellsword on a leash. You ignore him, but his words stick. What else are you gonna do? Start over? No chance. You keep moving. The work doesn't wait. Rain? You're still riding. Fever? It'll keep you warm. You're chasing thieves while coughing up blood, arresting murderers while limping from an old arrow wound. The days blur. You catch raiders, deserters, and sometimes you catch a beggar who steals a loaf of bread. But what really sticks with you are the ones you had to kill. The ones who ran, who fought, who left you with no choice. But you can't stop. The pay is good. The work needs to be done. And if you don't do it, someone even worse will. You're 30 now, and you've mastered your craft, with a reputation to show for it. You can track footprints through rain, read lies in a heartbeat, and end a brawl before it even starts. Your reputation grows. Soon, you don't ask for work. It finds you. Then one night, you ride into a village you've never seen before. The innkeeper steps out, wipes his hands, and says your name. Not sir, not you there. Your name. You pause, because no one used to know your name. And that's when it hits you. Your reputation arrived before you did. The good rooms, the hot meals, the respect. They're yours now. Guards don't stop you at the gate anymore. They wave you through. You're not a knight, you don't serve a crown, you don't chase justice, but you've built something. A name, a life. Soon, the jobs stop being small. A baron's steward hires you. High pay, high expectations. And for a while, it's great. But then one bounty, a young stable hand who finally struck back at his lord. You take him in, you take the pay, but something about it doesn't sit right. So you don't take another contract from them.
Nope.
You tell yourself it's because the jobs were beneath you. The years continue to roll by. You're 40 now, a seasoned bounty hunter. You've earned a few gray hairs and more than a few scars. Your name isn't just known, it carries weight. When the stakes are too high to fail, they come to you. You've stopped taking the small jobs. You're the one they call on when failure isn't an option. At least, for now. But the world doesn't stop changing. New bounty hunters are showing up. Young, fast, and hungry. More brutal than you ever were. And one day it hits you. You're not the one they fear anymore. Not really. It's not just that the world is changing. It's you. You're slowing down. Your shoulders ache. Your knees crack when you stand. The blade feels heavier than it used to. But you've carved out a place in this world. Through grit, blood, and stubbornness. You're not young, you're not fast, but people know your name, and that still counts for something. Younger bounty hunters buy you drinks, ask for tips, call you a legend. You try not to let it go to your head. Still, sometimes in quiet tavern corners you hear it. Still sharp, but not like it used to be. Used to be unstoppable. Now, well... You don't hear the rest, just enough to know where you stand. You say nothing, but the truth sits with you. You're slower. Cold mornings hit harder. The weight of the bodies you bring in feel heavier than they used to. You're still dangerous, but not untouchable. And some people are starting to notice. You sit by the fire some nights, staring into the flames. You think about the years, the silver, the people you turned in. The ones you dragged, the ones you didn't give a chance. You try not to think about it, but some nights, the silence lingers too long. Then one evening, someone knocks. No words, just a bounty poster, held out in the rain. You take it, recognize the face immediately. A woman, mid-30s now. 2 years ago, she robbed a noble's carriage. Clean getaway, big haul. Rumor said the noble raised taxes so high that her whole village starved. Real saint, that one. And her? You saw her 3 days ago at the market, holding a little girl's hand. Same eyes. The bounty's still active. You never realize how high the reward was. Enough to live like a lord. Enough to make you hesitate. You nod once and close the door. You figure it would be easy enough. A woman with a child? She couldn't have gone far. One last job, enough to leave this life behind for good. By morning, you're on your horse, joints aching, but determined. This is it, the final hunt. You ask around, drop some coin, get some whispers. Eventually, a lead points you toward a shack at the edge of town. You wait until nightfall. She steps outside with her child nearby. Just a glimpse of her through the shadows. Maybe it's the rope in your hand. Maybe it's the look in your eyes. But she sees you, and she knows. Her eyes widen. She runs, clutching the child, sprinting around the side of the house. You follow. Careful steps, heart thudding. Then, your knee locks up. For a second, you nearly lose her. But you grit your teeth, push through. She turns sharply, ducks into an alley, and stops short. A dead end. She spins around, cornered now, holding her child tightly. Both of them stare at you, terrified. And in their eyes, you don't just see fear. You see yourself, what you've become. You freeze, The rope falls out of your hand as you realize you just can't do it. You step aside. She stares at the rope on the ground, then her eyes flick back to you. And slowly, her face melts from fear to something else. Relief. Understanding. She straightens up, the child still in her arms. After a pause, she starts walking toward the open space, slowly. Once she's by your side, she just whispers, "Thank you," and walks away. You stand there for a while, staring into the dark, unsure if you just made a huge mistake or did the only right thing you've done in years. There's no silver, no glory, but something in your chest feels a little lighter. Eventually you turn around, climb onto your horse, and ride off. A few days later you head into town. You walk into a tavern, drop a coin, and take a seat, hoping ale will quiet your thoughts. Then you stop. There on the wall, a rough sketch of your face, a bounty, your name. Reason? Looking the other way. You stare at it. Hard to say who put it up. The list of people who want you dead is a long one. You study the lines, the price, and you think about everything that led here. The irony sinks in. You on a bounty poster. Then you hear it, the sound of a knife being drawn behind you. You turn. A younger bounty hunter, bigger, stronger. And in that moment, you know, it's over. It's either now or a noose. So you reach for your blade, knowing how this ends. But hey, at least you didn't end up a peasant.